Coming up on Gamers Week podcast.
Actually, my favorite part of this announcement was that they warned you to be careful with motion controls like 47 times.
You got your arm strap?
You got your arm strap. And then they're describing the tennis as gently swing. Or the leg strap is gently move your leg, not like kick the ball like you would actually kick a soccer ball.
I'm going to hit this thing like John McEnroe and Andre Agassi. You better believe it.
Welcome to Gamers Week podcast. Like the name says, we analyze the best, worst, and weirdest headlines of the past week in video game industry. This is episode 8. Today is Wednesday, February 9th, 2022. And my name is Ryan, aka Retro Game Brews, aka Professor Ryebread. And I have with me two fabulous people. First person is the president of the St. Louis chapter of the Fanny Pack Fanatics and the guy who's stuck in the 90s, Donnie G.
Fabulous!
And secondly, I have with me the woman who was once quoted as saying, heard a lot about me. Oh, well, don't worry. It can't all be true. The fabulous Blue Williams. How are you guys doing today?
I like it. Gentlemen, congratulations on 1 month of our podcast.
Oh, yeah.
It's our 1 month anniversary.
Yeah, it's our 1 month anniversary.
What did you get us?
1,000 downloads.
Exactly what I wanted.
Well played.
Yep.
So, of course, today we got a lot to talk about. But before we jump into covering anything with the podcast, we will, of course, want to do our reviews, reactions, and requests for the week. So first up is from Fractured Fissure, who said, currently listening to episode 5 of the podcast and just heard Blues rant about everything being a f***ing subscription. And you are absolutely preaching to the choir. I hate it. Triple so when companies make pausing or canceling difficult.
Exactly.
All right, next up is from FTAN Podcast. They said the discussion around Sony's live service games is another reminder as to why retro gaming is the best. Once you have the game, you have the game.
And this is something we touched on previously. If you have the game, if you have the physical copy, then you control what you can do with it, as opposed to it sitting on a server someplace in one of the Sony's or Microsoft servers. And they're like, oh, yeah, sorry, we're going to decommission the server and you can't have access to it. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. So again, always retro game. And lastly, from Mr. Knight Rider, what a fantastic episode again. When it comes to the PAL subject, we had converters and imported some games. Also played the old system in the mid to late 90s on a Sony Trinitron or a Toshiba TV via RGB SCART connection. It was incredible, massive difference in picture quality. And in fact, during my research for that, one of the things that I do when I put together my notes for Professor Ryebread's history lesson is I just basically dump everything into there that I found out. And that was one of the things that I had in there, was talking about the use of RGB SCART connections, which is pretty cool, considering over here we were really stuck with either RF or AV connections.
Right.
So in Europe, the picture quality was so much better compared to the US. So pretty cool. It's interesting as well as it got later into the 90s and into the early 2000s. Of course, that changed. But if you want like a SCART connection for your GameCube, that OEM cord runs for like $200 something nowadays. It's crazy.
Freaking hell.
Yeah, that's still insane that a cord can cost that much.
Yep. Right. It's insane. But every time it comes up on like Facebook and some of the gaming groups I'm in, I'm like, I would never spend $200 on that thing. Like I when it comes down to it, I don't need to game that much, or at least have like that small of an improvement in the way the game looks. I don't need to pay $200 for that. But yeah,
I can only imagine the amount of people who have sold that cable not knowing what it was or how coveted it is, and like, oh, it's $5, it's a cord, and everybody's like, oh, is this still available? Is this still available? Hey, I'll take it.
Somebody at a garage sale, their eyes get really big and they just very casually reach over and grab it.
Stay calm.
I'll give you $3 for this. So it is now time for the Very important poll. Every Monday on Twitter, we post our VIP, that is our very important poll. And if you'd like to participate, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC. So this week we asked, in honor of the 2022 Winter Olympics, what is your favorite snow level in a game? In third place, with 7.8% of the votes, we have the Lakeside level from The Last of Us. Second place was the Ice Palace from Zelda Link to the Past with 22.2% of the votes. And the winner was the Hoth level from Star Wars Battlefront with 41.1% of the votes. We also had 28.9% of people vote other, and let's look at some of their answers. At Retro Rex says Hoth from Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. Back in the day, I'd play the level over and over again, easily the best part of the game. Retro Blast US says Fandandra drifts in Metroid Prime. That music is just too good, and the atmosphere is chef's kiss. At Win Knight 12 said Freezy Peak from Banjo-Kazooie. At Biggs WB says the snowboarding minigame in Final Fantasy VII. And at the HD Pickles says Skyrim. All of it.
All of it.
All of it, just the whole thing.
But it's not all the snow levels, sure.
So what did you guys vote?
So I went with other, and that's because I am a big fan of the Final Fantasy VII snowy village that you go to, as well as that snowboarding minigame. I think that was super cool. I love the aesthetic of the village. And then after that, you go right into, oh, by the way, the kid snowboard that broke his leg or whatever on the run, you get to take his snowboard. I'm not exactly sure how an adult could snowboard down a kid-sized snowboard, but that's not the point.
You make it work.
But all of a sudden, it throws you into a cool little mini game as you go down. Now, after that, though, that is the worst snow level. So it's like this lovely dichotomy, right? You start off with the fun part and then have to deal with the glacier, which is the worst thing ever. So.
It's like, oh, did you have fun? Did you have fun? Yeah, okay, now suck it. Like, come on, man.
What about you, Donnie?
I kind of went with the Hoth, the Star Wars Battlefront. It is an epic level. I mean, you get to see you're in the snow speeder, blasting out the circular disc-like robots on Hoth, and then you get to freaking tie up an AT-AT with the ropes and shoot it down. I mean, come on.
I'm not taking that bait.
What?
So there has been a time in which me and Blue have argued over the pronunciation of that particular.
Oh, AT-AT. I apologize. Oh my God.
Oh, dude, it's totally an AT-AT.
We doing this?
I was just completely caught off guard because my entire lifetime of growing up as a rabid Star Wars fan, I had never once ever heard somebody pronounce it AT-AT.
Really?
Until you did. I was like, what the hell?
What this guy smoking?
Never once.
I've always pronounced it AT-AT.
Never once did I ever hear that. It was always AT-AT.
Oh, okay. I mean, to each their own. I think it's definitely a blended mix out there with people who think it's AT-AT versus people who think it's AT-AT. Just like people who pronounce Ninja Gaiden as Ninja Gaiden or what have you.
I see that all of these are pointed at me.
You started it, to be fair. I was going to let it go.
So aside from the Hoth level, there was one other level that I wanted to talk about, and that was the snowmobile level in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. That one was a chef's kiss of emotion. Just speeding down the mountain or up the mountain or in the snowy hills with shooting people trying to, to make it through. I still get chills whenever I think about that. And I do go back and play that level from time to time.
Very nice. Blue, what about you?
Snow levels kind of suck. I'm just going to say it.
Yes, they do.
On the whole, when Ryan suggested this question, I was like, I hate snow levels. They're always like the worst part of every game. But the one that I came up with was Ready, Yeti, Go and Sackboy, The Big Adventure.
Okay.
So it's a Himalayan themed level. And then at the end, you have to run away from the giant abominable showman. And he's like this, just this big round Yeti, but has this funniest like googly grin on his face. And he's just rolling down the mountain, having a good time. And you happen to be in the way. And so you have to outrun him. It's a really fun little sequence, really creative level. And I liked it.
Admittedly, I've never played a Sackboy game.
I've played Little Big Planet like once or twice. That's it.
That's right. It's called Little Big Planet. That's right.
Right.
See, I don't even know the name of it.
Sackboy Big Adventure. If you get a PS5, it's so fun. It's so creative. Highly recommend.
Excellent. All right. So why don't we go ahead and jump into thanking our patrons? Donnie, do you mind taking this one?
I do not mind at all. Cue the music. Matt. 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 You wouldn't think that a brand new podcast would already have patrons, and frankly, no one is more surprised than we are. Here are the generous folks supporting Gamers Week on Patreon. Producer BTW, Steven Sand, Terry Kinnair, Ducks in Disguise, Jim and Colleen, Games with Coffee, Davey PGH, the Red Ox PDX family, including Shannon and Luke, Zach Huge Thanks, Random Retro Dude, Michael Lundeen, Princess Kitty Mew Mew, Mega Retro Man, Emo-esque, Ryebread's #1 fan, Fruitcake's #1 stan, The Wizard of Zardoz, Clayman71, Great Saiyaman81, BNT Zillaguy, Crunchy Kong, Sheriff Snacks, and Frank Grande. If you like what you hear today, and we really hope that you do, please consider joining us on Patreon. Your support helps cover the cost of producing the show, as well as other cool stuff we'll be doing like prizes and giveaways. Visit patreon.com/gamersweek or follow the link in the show notes to learn more. Also, yesterday we launched our weekly patron-only bonus cast called Gamers Week Uncut. Patrons with benefits. Ooh, after hours. It's an informal show with less editing, more dirty jokes, and of course, all the video game talk you know and love.
Yes. If you're not sure whether you want to become a patron, I'll just give you a little spoiler and say that Donnie spends a lot of time talking about the saxophone guy from Lost Boys in the first episode of Gamers Week Uncut. So, you know, there's quality stuff there.
And Ryan brought it up.
That's the price of admission. It's worth it.
And who doesn't like an oiled up guy playing a saxophone? No? Crickets?
All right, before we jump into headlines, just wanted to do a quick reminder that we're going to be doing another Gamers Week giveaway here starting this Friday, February 11th, and we will be accepting entries all the way till Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. So if you're listening to this years later, too bad, so sad. But we are going to be giving away a copy of the Sega Saturn version of Street Fighter, the movie, the game. Super excited to give this one away. It's kind of a fun thing to either one of two ways. You can either throw it up on your shelf. It's kind of something to laugh at. Or if you really want to give it a try, go for it. But always remember, if you don't have a Sega Saturn, you're certainly welcome to enter into the contest. And we will happily provide that to a person of your choice. So even if you don't got one, feel free to enter the contest. All you got to do is you got to reply to the Twitter post on @RetroGameBrews. What you're going to do is take a picture or a screenshot of you listening to the show, and then you'll have to tag one friend as well in your post. So all the rules and everything that you need to in order to enter into the contest will be available as a pin tweet at @RetroGameBrews on Twitter. But we're super excited to go ahead and give away this awesome, in quotation marks, game.
I don't have a Saturn, but I'd still love to have that. It's hilarious.
Anytime somebody comes over, they're like, is this really a thing? Like, yes, this was really a thing.
I don't think anybody would come to my house, wouldn't even know what it was. It would be just a private laugh for me to look at and be amused by.
Is that Jean-Claude Van Damme?
And Dottie, have you ever played this one?
I have, and it's a video game about a movie about a video game. And like when it came out, I'm just like, okay, the movie was horrible. So now you want me to play a game based on that movie? All right, I'll try it. And
you're not helping the giveaway.
The best thing I love about this game, though, is that, of course, the biggest competitor to Street Fighter back in the day was Mortal Kombat.
Right.
And Mortal Kombat used to take pictures of actual people and use that as the sprite work for the game. Well, this game does that for Street Fighter, so it's almost like we don't care. We do not care. We're gonna go against the formula here just for this one game, and it's funny. I got to be honest with you, it's funny. It's really hilarious. Some of the voice work on it is really funny too. So definitely check it out. But yeah, super excited to be giving away a weird piece of video game history.
Somebody will take this home and be happy with it.
Right,
not me.
All right, so why don't we jump into our headlines for the week? So first up from ARS Technica, Intellivision asks fans for more money, reveals massive Amico debts. So Intellivision Amico's wild ride as a possible video game console may soon come to an end. On Monday, Intellivision Entertainment Incorporated began its fourth round of public pre-launch fundraising in less than 4 years. In particular, the company tells investors that it has generated no revenues since its formation in 2018. And its handlers predict Intellivision can only operate until July of this year at its current zero revenue pace, before needing to drastically change course. According to the company, long-term debt is up to $7.2 million and short-term debt has reached $1.2 million. The SEC disclosure includes many other eyebrow-raising statements about risk factors as well. Intellivision's new admission that it has limited experience in pricing and marketing our products runs counter to statements in 2021 about its combined staff, including savvy game industry veterans. Intellivision now suggests that it will sell some Amico games as non-fungible tokens. But the company has yet to clarify what technology stack or console interface will support such verification system. And the risk factor section does not warn investors that the recent NFT promotion efforts in the gaming industry have led to consumer backlash and boycotts. The documents section on risk factors does clarify, however, there may never be a fully operational Intellivision Amico.
All of this is what investors love to hear.
Oh, of course, right? And that such a scenario would be due to a change in business model. Should Intellivision decide that a physical Amico console would not be in the best interest of the company and its stockholders, members, creditors.
So what did people crowdfund this for?
Oh my God. I this is such a I told you so moment for me.
I mean, come on. Who would have thought that the Intellivision, a 40-plus-year-old console, was going to do anything relevant in today's video game market?
And, you know, I think Tommy Tallarico has taken this on as his own pet project, but there was also recent news that he has actually stepped down as CEO of Intellivision, and now he's like chief.
That's so shocking listening to all of this about how the company is doing. Actually, what's more shocking is that he stepped down to a lesser role and didn't just run entirely away.
Right. And I would imagine he probably has a lot of his own personal assets tied up in this. And to be honest, it was his idea. This whole thing was his baby, if you will, coming down to the fact that he used to play Intellivision when he was a kid, and he loved the couch co-op option that it made available to him and his friends and his family. And he wanted to create a console that had the same experience in the modern times. And while I agree, couch co-op has always been something that's fun, in the landscape in which we look to or have today, you're not going to change people's minds because you came out with a crowdfunded console. Mm-hmm. And from what we've seen from the games, there isn't a whole lot of great things coming out of it, I think, besides a new Earthworm Jim.
Which didn't look great.
Right. It did not look great. You're absolutely right. And the thing is, the interface is super weird. There's like these crazy modes to the game where it will purposely, if you're good at it, it will make it so that you have a harder time playing the game versus people that you're playing with that aren't as good at it. So there's like this leveling system. It's really, really weird. And again, I get the idea behind this and I get the effort. It's just, it's one of those things where you got to recognize after, 4 years of doing this, and I think they're finally getting to that point, is that if an idea isn't working, no amount of effort or passion is going to make that idea work.
Throw more money at it. That'll help,
Right.
though.
Right?
Ask your investors for more money.
It's like the Google model.
I mean, this was always going to be a tough sell. They are marketing this as a family co-op console. Like you said, this is not what today's kids want to play.
No.
Even though it's affordable, like the console retails, or, it's listed as, in theory, someday retailing for $249. You can get a Switch for basically the same price. There are so many free-to-play games out there, stuff that kids actually want to play. The only way I see that this ever could have worked, it would have been Intellivision Mini, that you could sell to people who remembered playing Intellivision when they were kids. But to think that this was ever going to go up against something like the Switch, that was a pipe dream to begin with. And now you can see it's playing out exactly like most everyone thought it would.
And have you seen some of the brown wood paneling colors that one of the systems is? Like, talk about taking it back to the 70s, man.
Oh yeah, that was his whole thing, right? It's trying to recapture the aesthetic. The only problem, or even the whole experience. The only problem is are how many people out there are so enamored with that experience. It's a small marketplace.
I'm pretty sure that we left the 70s behind for a reason.
Yup.
Just throwing it out there. All right, next up from Eurogamer, U.S. government wants Nintendo hacker Gary Bowser behind bars for 5 years to provide just punishment. Nintendo hacker Gary Bowser should face 60 months, that is 5 years, behind bars, the U.S. government has said. Bowser, meanwhile, has pled that he should go down for just 19 months. Bowser's hacking group, Team Executor, generated tens of millions of dollars from the mass-produced and widely sold mod chips. The industrial scale of this enterprise was key to it catching the U.S. government's eye. For his part, Bowser's lawyers have argued Gary was the least culpable and only apprehended defendant from this indictment, while others have escaped the law. Because of this, they wrote, Bowser was being given the brunt of the blame. The U.S. government said the 60-month sentence was appropriate given the nature and circumstances of the offense, the history and characteristics of the defendant, and the need for the sentence to reflect the seriousness of the offense, to promote respect for the law, and to provide just punishment to afford adequate deterrence to criminal conduct. This case's outcome will create ripples within the video game community and was being watched closely by the industry, the U.S. government continued. Separate from this U.S. government case and his $4.5 million fine, Bowser has additionally accepted a whopping $10 million fine for Nintendo's own civil lawsuit against him.
Can we talk for a second about the fact that his name is Bowser and he's going up against Nintendo?
That cannot be a real name. He changed it to Bowser, I'm convinced.
I don't know. He's in this much trouble. I feel like his real government name would have come out if it was different.
Yeah.
I know. I'm just joking, but man, that is such a coincidence. It's hilarious.
Stuff writes itself.
Right. Again, to your point, I don't think if you wrote that into a story that you were making, people would be like, all right, come on. That's a little too
The
close,
studio
though.
would be like, yeah, no, we're going to change that.
That's too cliche. That name is too cliche, but it's my name. Yeah, we can't go with that one.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know. Personally, I don't see that as hacking. You've sold a mod chip that did something to a Switch, right? But what did this do? I'm not on the full up and up on what exactly it did. So was it giving people free games, free content, or what have you? What did this particularly thing do?
Okay, from Wikipedia, the always reliable source. Team Executor is a video game hacker group known for making mod chips and jailbreaking game consoles. Among console hackers who primarily consist of hobbyists testing boundaries and believing in the open source model, Team Executor was controversial for selling hacking tools for profit. Console systems targeted by the group include the Nintendo Switch, the 3DS, the NES Classic, Sony PlayStation, Xbox, and Xbox 360.
Yeah, so similar. I mean, if we're talking about the NES Classic, it's of course hack into it and then add any ROM that you want.
And everybody's done that. Everybody and their grandmother did that.
Right. How is this really different though from you can buy an EverDrive, there's nothing on it, or a Pi, there's nothing on it. But of course, we know why people are buying them.
What do you mean? That everybody's on the up and up?
I don't do anything illegal.
Mm-mm.
I don't know. I guess I'm somebody's going to school me about the law and why you should respect the law and everything. And honestly, this is you're taking a piece of equipment that you purchased, and you should be able to do whatever you want with that piece of equipment, not in a sense where it's detrimental to somebody's livelihood. Do we think that this is detrimental to Nintendo's livelihood?
Well, in Nintendo's view, it is probably.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I guess I'm of a different opinion on this, because like I had a friend back 20 years ago, all right, when he owned a Focus, and the Focus was a nice sport performance car that he modded, and he actually created this mod for the headlights that did something that I can't remember. And he was selling these mods where people could install this chip into their headlights and have it do something cool, like a ring effect or what have you. I don't remember what exactly came of that, but I think he might have gotten like a cease and desist letter or something to that nature. And then Ford ended up implementing this particular mod on their own. And now any new car that came out had this.
Interesting.
That's some BS right there.
Right.
Right. Well, and the thing I think that is the difference is that you're putting potentially games on a console that either isn't supposed to be there, or you're putting it on there for free. So it's property that you could potentially spend with Nintendo. So I get that. The biggest, I think, difference between what you see with most hacker groups, especially when it came to like the NES Classic, there were a lot of free download mods for that, where you could not buy a plug, but get a plug, just download it and then upload it into your NES Classic. And the main difference is that it was free, where they're trying to make a profit off of that. And then, of course, every company and corporation goes, whoa, you can't make money off of this. How dare you?
Right.
And I mean, I get it. I get it from their point of view. If you want to say, okay, you're making money off of something that I could be making money off of, or you're modifying something on our console that's not intended and therefore profiting from it. I get that. I do. But to your point, if this was just a mod that they were making available to people to create on their own, they probably would not be facing this level of lawsuit from Nintendo. It's
because they gained a monetary advantage or value from it. And I get that.
The other thing that I found interesting was that the defense's defense, if you will, was that, you know, he was the least culpable and the only one apprehended from this indictment, which to me is not, I don't think that's the best defense out there.
Does that mean he's the idiot?
Right, exactly. No, it's like everybody's going really fast down the highway and you're the only one getting pulled over. You're like, right. You should get those people too. They were speeding. I wasn't going as fast as them. That's not going to work. That's not going to hold up in court. But hey, anything to reduce your sentence, I suppose.
But I mean, also, it's not like you're just a normal speeder and then the court decides they're going to throw the freaking book at you because they're going to make an example of you and scare all the other speeders. True. The sentence shouldn't be because Nintendo is really upset. It should be in line and proportionate to what he has actually done, not making him pay for the entire team executor.
Well, then this is probably a new area of litigation for the U.S. government as well as Nintendo. So you're the first to get caught doing it, and you're going against the law. So guess what? You're the one who takes the brunt of everything, and that's a history of that in our court system.
Right or wrong, I suppose.
Right, exactly. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying that's what happens. It's the reality of it, unfortunately.
I've got one thing to say and one thing only: hack the planet. I'll leave you with that.
Hack the planet.
I think it's a great way to end our conversation.
From Ars Technica, deprioritized Google Stadia to pivot to Google Stream white label service. As Stadia continues to cling to life inside Google, a new report from Business Insider's Hugh Langley sheds light on what the cloud gaming division has been up to for the past few months. As usual, the report is not promising. According to the BI report, the Stadia consumer platform has been deprioritized inside Google and now only takes up an estimated 20% of the Stadia division's time. After Google closed its only first-party studio last year, before it had ever produced a game. Let that sink in, people. Mm-hmm. A blog post hinted that a white label service would be Stadia's future. The white label Stadia service would work a lot like the way Google Cloud Platform works. Companies that don't want to run their own cloud gaming service could just use Google's backend and distribute their games however they want. Giggity. The report reveals 4 potential Google Stream customers: AT&T, Peloton, Capcom, and Bungie.
Or Sony.
Yeah, exactly. Stadia has been shedding leadership and key employees for a while. Assassin's Creed co-creator and SG&E leader Jade Raymond left in February 2021 when the game development studio closed. Stadia's VP and head of product, John Justice, that's a movie name, and Stadia engineering lead Justin Uberti both left in May 2021. To this list, the BI report can add Jack Buser, Stadia's former director for games, and Teddy Keefe, Stadia's partnerships manager for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Google isn't killing the consumer platform yet, but one source told Business Insider that people are working really hard to make sure it doesn't die.
This would be another I told you so.
Yeah, I was going to say, show of hands. Who is really, really shocked to hear that this is happening?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Nobody in their right mind.
And I get that people have been supporting Stadia and wanting it to do well.
Of course.
I've talked about this idea of cloud gaming eventually being the future. It's just not ready for it yet.
Stadia is only the newest, most logic-defying, mind-bending, absurd gaming platform on Earth. Forget boxes, forget consoles, just your games, your screens, and electric air. And this electric air is Stadia.
It 100% could have worked. It's not a bad idea in theory, but they put the horse before the cart.
Absolutely.
They put the structure and the cloud gaming out there with 0 games, and that's what killed it. Like, the games were a complete afterthought. If they had exclusive titles that were compelling, people would have gone to Stadia. I would have. But it's like when Leroy was on, he said their equivalent of new games is 6-month-old games, and they're selling them for full price, and then they can't figure out why nobody wants to subscribe to Stadia.
Right.
It's not the idea that was bad. It is completely how they've done it.
It's the execution. And this is not something that we're new to, because other consoles, other companies have definitely done this. Case in point, you get the 3DO. Back in the 90s, they came out, their console was super expensive. If I'm not mistaken, the console was delayed even a little bit. And whenever they did come out, their titles were lackluster at best. And it took a while in order to get some decent titles on the platform. And by that time, you've already soured your people on the console, and they're going in droves to other people like Sega and Nintendo, and even TurboGrafx NEC.
It's funny that you brought up the 3DO, because I was thinking the Amiga 32 CD was a good example of this as well, where they came out with this system because, of course, the Amiga PC, big in Europe, wanted to create a whole library of games for this eventually, but they came out with the console first, and then a handful of games that were, you had a 32-bit CD system that could play these great games, and they looked worse than what was coming out on the Genesis and Super Nintendo at the time. So, also wanted to mention Peloton is one of their 4 potential Google Stream customers.
Oof.
Actually, that really makes a lot of sense.
Okay, you're going to have to describe this to me, because I don't understand.
Peloton, you're on treadmills and you're on bikes. You've got a captive audience because people, if you have a Peloton, you have to subscribe to them monthly, right?
Right.
So they're not interested in creating games the way we would think of video games. It's more about interactive workouts in novel settings, doing novel things.
Got it. So it's like We Fit, kind of. But for treadmills and bikes.
Yeah. And this could, it could possibly turn Peloton around, who's had a very rough start to 2022. I don't know. I'll believe it whenever I see it.
I think one of the other things that you run into, though, with Stadia is that they have been outclassed by the Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you've already got an established console that has great games, and they're making these games. Essentially, they're providing these games at probably a loss for them, if you're looking at it from Xbox's point of view. So it's cheaper, I think, and it's also got way better games.
Yeah, this is just 100% an example of Google's arrogance, thinking that they could just throw some money and be immediately a gaming giant without realizing that it takes 3, 4, 5 years to actually make games. They went to all the trouble of starting up their own studios and then closed them down after a year or less, if I remember correctly. Didn't even give them a chance to do anything, and they are immediately giving up on it. This was stupid to begin with, and I think we just got to pour one out for the Stadia guy.
How do I say goodbye? That's me pouring one out.
Keep going. All right, so why don't we jump into our top 3 new releases for the week? By the way, Blue, thank you for teaching me how to pronounce this. The first one is Sifu.
Bless you.
Which is available on PS5, PS4, and PC. It's a third-person action game featuring intense hand-to-hand combat. It puts you in control of a young kung fu student on a path of revenge. Blue, tell me about this one real quick.
I talked about it at length in the Gamers Week Uncut, the patron-only podcast. Mm-hmm. So if you're interested in that, you could sure become a patron and hear the whole thing. But the too long didn't read version is, if you like beat-em-ups and don't mind working hard, then you will really like this game. I'm really enjoying it.
And I based off of your description, I'm actually thinking about getting into this. Would you say it's similar to like Arkham or something like that?
That's funny that you asked that, because I did have that same question the other night. I just failed to ask if the hand-to-hand combat battle system was like that.
Having not played the Arkham games.
That doesn't help.
I told you I don't like Batman.
Don't like Batman. Where's the log off podcast button?
I've been honest this whole time. I'm sorry that you keep forgetting.
It shouldn't be a surprise.
Just like a Batman 66.
Oh, son of a...
All right, next up, Ali World. Platforms are available on is PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. It's a bold new skateboarding action platformer that's bursting with personality. Flip and flow through the vivid and vibrant world of Radalandia.
Yeah!
Radlandia, I think that's how that's pronounced. Meeting colorful characters as you grind, trick, and air your way to discover the mystic skate gods on your quest for Nirvana?
Like gnarly? Nirvana?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was like, there's a G there.
Yeah.
Clever. And we also have Edge of Eternity, which is available on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Wage an epic turn-based battles as you follow Darian and Celine on their quest to find a cure for the all-consuming corrosion in this Final Fantasy-inspired tale of hope and sacrifice created by Midgar Studio, a small team of passionate JRPG lovers. Yasunori Mitsuda, the legendary composer on games like Chrono Trigger and Xenoblade Chronicles, contributed to the soundtrack. Oh my God. That's a game.
When I saw this, I was like, this is all Ryan. He's going to be all into this.
Oh my God. There was words in there that made my heart sing. Midgar, Chrono Trigger, JRPG, Final Fantasy, and Spider. It was like it was
turn-based. Turn-based.
Turn-based. Yes, turn-based.
You don't find that often. You better jump on it when you see one.
I like the name of the studio.
Midgar Studio?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's clever.
They're not disguising where their thoughts and their hearts are lying. That's for sure.
Royalty lies.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Any thoughts on Ali World at all?
Yeah, actually, I'm kind of interested and intrigued to pick this one up, depending on, is it going to be a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater knockoff? Is it going to have, is it going to look and feel unique? I'll have to give it a look just to see how it plays. I might be interested.
Yep. Last Tony Hawk game I played was Underground. I really enjoyed that. I played the ever-loving you-know-what out of it. But I haven't really gotten into skateboard games since then. So maybe this will get me back into the genre.
Lots of bright colors. It looks really cute, really family-friendly. I think they're planning on doing lots of crossovers, kind of like Fortnite does, where you bring in other IPs to it. So I think, especially like if you have kids, I think it would be great for you.
I do have kids, and
I know you do.
I think I would agree with that statement.
They're Fortnite playing kids too.
They are. They're both Fortnite playing. They also love a game called Skate 3 for the PS3. They play that an ungodly amount. So I think this would be right up their alley.
All right, before we jump into our main topic, let's go ahead and thank our sponsor for the week, Blue.
Alrighty, Gamers Week podcast is proudly sponsored by the Retro Game Club podcast. It's a fantastic, family-friendly retro gaming podcast. In each episode, Rob and Hugh pick 2 games to play and discuss, as well as news, interviews, and other topics. They just released their episode 114, where they talk about Jackass the Game and the AI who broke Tetris. Visit retrogameclub.net to check them out or follow the link in the show notes.
Perfect. So why don't we go ahead and jump into the main topic for the day, the week, potentially weeks on end here. But we're going to be, of course, talking about our Nintendo Direct for today, which, by the way, I have to say thank you so much, Nintendo, for having a Direct on a Wednesday and not a Thursday.
Right? Oh, can you imagine if this dropped tomorrow?
So glad that we finally get to cover one like the day that it happens.
So we would be late.
And Nintendo must be fans of Gamers Week.
That's it. They knew.
They must
Doug
be.
Bowser.
No relation to Gary Bowser.
Right. He listens. He's a big fan. All right, Donnie, why don't you take our first one?
From IGN, Nintendo Direct February 2022, everything announced today. The first Nintendo Direct of 2022 has finally arrived, and it revealed a ton of new games on their way to Nintendo Switch in the first half of 2022 and beyond. There are so many games to cover that we're going to move through this list pretty quickly. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has been announced, and it will be released in September 2022. This new story will follow the adventures of Noah and Mio amid turmoil between the hostile nations of Kevs and Agnes. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 also looks to connect the futures of both Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
So when this first started playing, I had no idea what game it was. Right? You're like, what is this? Okay.
Right.
This is looking very Nintendo.
As soon as you see the sword, then you know.
Yeah, true. Don't get me wrong, right? But at first, you're like, what is this? And I was on the Discord for our patrons, and Snacks was like, is this Xenoblade Chronicles? Oh my God. And you could feel like the crescendo of his excitement.
A caps lock freak out.
Right? All right, so next up is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. We'll soon be getting the new tracks via the paid booster course pass. This will add 48 additional courses to the game through 2023.
Wow. First
of 6 waves, all of which contain 8 courses, arrives on March 18th and includes such classic tracks as Wii's Coconut Mall, N64's Choco Mountain, and Tour Tokyo Blur. While the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Pack will cost $24.99, it will also be free to all members of Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack. So not just the $20 one, but the expansion pack with the N64 and Sega Genesis. So, by the way, genius move on their part to get people to buy the expansion pack. Right? It's like, all right, well, you could pay $24.99 and not get the expansion pack, but or you could pay the exact same amount, get the expansion pack, and also have access to N64 and Genesis games. And I think the only person that's not doing that is just doing it to be difficult. Like, no, I don't want to get the expansion pack.
I'm not getting the expansion pack.
To get N64 games, Blue. N64 games.
Yay.
Yeah.
And Strider for the Genesis.
You're not doing a good job of selling that to me.
I'm not a good salesperson. That's just natural.
But how impressive is that for 48 additional courses for only $24?
It's an entirely new game.
So here's the thing. I already bought them separately because I'm not interested in the expansion pack stuff. Also, I don't want to have to subscribe to the expansion pack forever, lest I lose access to my booster course pack. But the thing about this is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe already has 48 tracks. So this effectively doubles the content of the game. It's essentially getting a whole new game's worth of content, but instead of having to pay $60 for it, we only have to pay $24.99. That's good news. Of course, you already have, the trolls online are going, this is stupid. This is an 8-year-old game. I can't believe people are so excited about this kind of content. It's like, you know what? Maybe you should try lightening up just a little bit, because this is, like I said, this is a whole new game's worth of content. If they had just wrapped this up separately and sold it as Mario Kart 9, you wouldn't say that. But because it says Mario Kart 8, people are hating on it. But you know what? I'm freaking thrilled. This is awesome.
It's a great way for them to give service to fans like you with not having to necessarily come out with Mario Kart 9 or leave you hanging until
Right.
the next console that comes out.
Exactly. We're going to get Mario Kart 9 anyway.
Right.
It's not
right.
like this is instead of Mario Kart 9. It's in addition to, and they're just saying, wait a little bit longer. Here's something to play in the meantime.
Yeah, I like
This
that.
is nothing but good news. So I'm all over it.
This is the biggest Mario Kart game that's ever come out, if you think about it. Even
Yeah,
though, yes,
it
it was a
absolutely
DLC, right? It's still the biggest one that's ever been. So Mario Kart 9, by the way, you got a lot to live up to.
Yep. Okay, next up, Nintendo has announced that Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes will be arriving on Switch on June 24th, 2022. This is the second Musou-style Fire Emblem game, and it looks to feature characters from Fire Emblem: The Three Houses. So, for those not in the know, a Musou game is a Japanese hack-and-slash type video game that has the player playing as a character that fights through hundreds of simple enemies and destroys them with relative ease. In North America, they are known as the Warriors franchises and include games such as Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors, Hyrule Warriors, and more.
For a short period of time, it's a lot of fun just rolling through enemies. I've seen Samurai Warriors. That is very, very fun and interesting, but I don't know if it's something that I could play day after day for hours and hours on end.
It's a super niche genre.
For sure.
Hyrule Warriors, I don't know if it still has a demo, but it did have a demo out on the eShop. So if you've never played a game like this, you can try out the demo. I personally don't care for it, but it seems like Nintendo is really into making these kind of side games for their big IPs. If you like JRPGs, this was a good direct for you.
Nice.
Mario Strikers is returning with Mario Strikers Battle League. This 5v5 soccer game with no rules features Mario characters and will allow up to 8 players to compete on one Switch. Much like Mario Kart, Battle League will let players use items and activate special shots to help them secure victory. Mario Strikers Battle League will be released on June 10th, 2022. I like what I see with Mario Strikers.
Yeah.
Oh man, this looks so cool. Mr. Blue and I put in so many hours into Super Mario Strikers on the GameCube. And this looks like that, but even more betterer. It looks so awesome.
Betterer?
Betterer. You heard me.
So back in the day, I was a huge fan of Nintendo World Cup. With like the Kuni
yes.
characters and everything, right? And then, oh my God, I spent so many hours playing that game, especially on the Game Boy, which was easily the crappiest looking version of it. But this reminds me so much of that, especially with the super shots and everything. And I'm all over this. I'm super excited. I'm not like a big sports game fan necessarily, but this just looks super, super fun. I'm glad that it also does not play like Mega Man Soccer. So a remaster of Chrono Cross will arrive on Nintendo Switch on April 7th, 2022. Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers Edition, as it is called, will include such updates as the availability to turn off encounters and enhance soundtrack. The game also includes the Radical Dreamers text adventure that was previously available only on Satellaview, which is so ironic. But we'll get to that later.
It's pretty weird. This looks cool. I'm all over this. I love seeing ports and remasters of old games that I didn't have a chance to play before.
Same here. I'm also super excited about the enhanced soundtrack because one of the best soundtracks of all time is Chrono Cross. So to have it enhanced is something I'm really, really, really looking forward to.
Enhance.
Enhance.
Fans of Wii Bowling will be happy to know a new version of it will be returning as part of Nintendo Switch Sports. Joining bowling will be tennis, swordplay,
Yep.
soccer, badminton, and volleyball. Additionally, the leg strap accessory found in Ring Fit Adventure can be used to kick a virtual ball in Soccer Shootout. Nintendo Switch Sports will become available on April 29th, 2022, and there will be free updates post-launch, including one that adds golf. An online playtest will take place on February 18th through the 20th for all Nintendo Switch Online members.
I will be playtesting. Just throwing that out there.
I'm looking forward to playing golf because I had a lot of fun with the Wii Sports Golf.
For sure.
And I'm curious to see how enhanced this will actually be on the Nintendo Switch.
Enhance.
I'm excited for bowling because that was my favorite Wii Sports game.
Right.
Honestly.
Oh my God. Yes.
And I'm an ace at bowling. So I'm going to throw down against everybody, taking on all challengers. I say that, but of course, this enhanced version is probably going to be a little different, and I'm going to suck at it and be really embarrassed. I'm predicting my own future.
It did talk about you being able to participate in online leagues, so I suppose it depends how much you want to get your ass kicked or not.
Johnny likey.
I'm going to stick to friends.
Couch co-op, right?
Right.
Actually, my favorite part of this announcement was that they warned you to be careful with motion controls like 47 times.
You got your arm strap?
You got your arm strap, and then they're describing the tennis as gently swing, or the leg strap is gently move your leg, not like kick the ball like you would actually kick a soccer ball.
I'm going to hit this thing like John McEnroe and Andre Agassi. You better believe it.
It reminds me of Super Mario Party on the Switch, where you have to play everything with the motion controls.
Yep.
It's like, even if we were just sitting on the couch, just kind of not doing the motions like the game intends, but just moving the Joy-Con around, if we did it too hard, the game would stop and remind us to play carefully. It was so obnoxious.
It's a helicopter parent.
Yeah, exactly. Nintendo has a nanny, and the nanny will absolutely be making an appearance in these Nintendo Switch sports game.
I'm not playing badminton. There's a moratorium on badminton for me.
You don't want to hit around the shuttlecocks?
I don't. In fact, I got an injury in high school as a result of badminton. So
the only way you're going to mess up your eye is if you're not swinging your Joy-Con around carefully.
The nanny will tell me.
Yeah, the nanny will protect you. Don't you worry.
Triangle Strategy is set to be released on Nintendo Switch on March 4th, and a brand new demo will be available today that will let players try out chapters 1 through 3. If players choose to purchase the game, all save data will transfer over to the full version, which I like.
I do too. And I've been excited about Triangle Strategy for a while. I love tactical RPGs. Big fan of Shining Force. Always been a big fan of Final Fantasy Tactics, and this looks like it lives up to it. I have not played the demo that they had, I think, previously, so I'll have to try out chapters 1 through 3, but the fact that it will transfer over to the full version if I wanted to is so clutch. That means that I can, I guess, give it like a real go at it rather than, like, oh, okay, we'll just see how the mechanics are.
Right.
I'm going to be grinding and doing the things I would normally do anyway.
Yeah, I did play the demo they had last year. One thing that I think that this new demo is doing well is it's letting you play out chapters 1 through 3. The previous demo just dropped you in, I think it was chapter 3. So you're completely lost, which you can kind of excuse in a demo. You're not really meant to know the ins and outs of the story that much. But the problem with the demo is it was almost all dialogue and very, very little gameplay. The little bit of gameplay that I tried, it was fine. It seemed like your kind of typical tactical game. I was like, I can't do this. I can't just click through all this dialogue when I don't know what's going on.
I don't play games to read.
Right, exactly. And that's what it seemed like it was going to be. I completed the little survey after I played the demo and told them what I thought. And I have heard that the devs have taken a ton of user feedback into account when they have released the game. So hopefully all of that is fixed. And hopefully this is going to be a really worthwhile game, because I know a lot of people are looking forward to it. And I'm glad that there's another opportunity to check out the demo, because based on what I played before, I wouldn't buy this.
That's scary. So
well, you can play the demo and then you can see for yourself.
For sure.
Demos are the way, people.
Demos are the best.
Try before you buy.
I love this model of doing that, where put out a demo, get feedback, make the right choices, make the right game.
Yeah, we used to have demos in the back of video game magazines back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Oh,
whatever happened to that?
The video game magazines went away.
That's true.
All right, next up is Splatoon 3. We'll be getting a new version of the co-op Salmon Run mode, first introduced in Splatoon 2. We were given no new release date beyond summer of 2022. But we did get a glimpse of some of the colorful and chaotic action we will be a part of later this year. So glad they said something about Splatoon 3. I'm not a huge fan of Salmon Run personally, but it's still fun. It's if friends want to do it, I'm always obliged to do it. It looked like it was super intense, maybe even more intense. And I like the fact that they added the throw feature when it comes to eggs. That's one of the features of Splatoon 2 that makes that mode so difficult is getting back to the net that holds all, or the bucket or whatever it is that holds all the eggs. So you can be fairly close to that, and then something happens and then you lose, and it's detrimental to you long term, right? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to increase the amount that you get paid every time that you play. So if you lose a match, you actually your pay goes down, which stinks. So you can lose all this progress as a result of just a gimmick in the game itself that isn't intuitive. So I love the fact that now with that throw feature, I would imagine they're going to make the game a little bit more difficult to make that something that's not like just I'm going to win every time. But
Right.
the fact that you can throw it to another player or you can throw it into the bucket, I love that idea.
All right, next up, a free update is arriving for Metroid Dread later today that will add both a more difficult Dread mode and an easier Rookie mode. In April 2022, Metroid Dread will also get a free Boss Mush Road.
Road?
It's the Iditarod version of it. I think it's cool that they're adding extra modes to this game.
Did either of you guys play Metroid Dread?
I did not.
Haven't yet. I plan on it, but I haven't.
It was my game of the year last year. Freaking loved it. I really like these updates for a couple reasons. One, when Metroid Dread was released, it launched a firestorm of internet controversy about games that don't have easy modes. And you know what? The developer's like, here's your freaking Rookie mode, okay? Stop complaining all the time about everything. I'm not going to play the Dread mode. That sounds horrible. But I know there are people out there who always want things harder. And you know what? There's something for you too. What I do want is the free boss rush mode, because Metroid Dread had a ton of really unique boss fights, really fun, really challenging, and I think it'll be a great way to go back and get more life out of a game that I enjoyed very much.
Wasn't there an issue on the first level of Metroid Dread where everybody could not get past, or a majority of people could not get past, and that's what caused the storm?
One guy couldn't get past, and he was very vocal.
Oh,
the
wow.
problem is that I think for a lot of people, this was your first Metroid game.
Right.
If you have played previous Metroids, you know that there's hidden walls that you have to blast.
Yep.
So what Metroid Dread had was just a very Metroid-y mechanic. But if you didn't know to look for it, I can concede that I don't think the game did a great job of preparing you to know to look for it if it was your first Metroid game.
It says in the manual, play Super Metroid first.
Yeah.
Really?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh my God. I mean, that's good. That's great advice, actually. Because if you try to pick up any one of the Super Metroid or even the Metroid for the NES and try to play it blind with no manual, you're going to be just like this guy who had a difficult time trying to get past these things. Because there are levels in the NES version, if I remember correctly, you have to set off bombs, and there's no discernible difference between the floor of where you, or the space of where on the floor where you need to put this bomb at. So you could be walking around for hours, just like racking your brain trying to figure out where to go, and it was right there under your feet the whole time, but you didn't know it.
I think the boss, I almost said Boss Mush Road.
That's what it should be called, Boss Mush Road.
I'm going to take my horse to the Boss Mush Road.
I think that reminds me of what Hollow Knight has done with their DLC and expanding out the gameplay and allowing people to come back to it. So I think it's a cool way to breathe life into games like this, is to kind of take that model and run with it.
Exactly.
Up next, ahead of Kirby and the Forgotten Lands release date of March 25th, it got a new gameplay trailer that showed off, among other things, Mouthful Mode. This will allow Kirby to inhale real-world objects like a car or a vending machine to turn into them. And I immediately read this and my mind went south. And I'm not going to mention any of the things on here, maybe on our Gamers Week Uncut podcast, but not here.
That's okay, because I think pretty much everybody over 12 saw the screen, and Kirby's there in his car form, but in great big letters, it says Mouthful Mode. And I know that everybody over 12 immediately was thinking the same thing.
I gotta say, though, outside of the obvious jokes for this game looked amazing.
Oh, this looks so much fun.
If you compare, by the way, if you watch the Nintendo Direct they had prior, which I think was summer of last year, that showcased Forgotten Lands, the difference between what they were showing then versus now is like night and day. It was like empty space. There was nothing going around and nothing going on. And now it's full of all of these enemies and all these different things that you can interact with in regards to it looks so incredibly good. And I'm not a huge fan of games like the 3D platformer type of games, but there seems to be so much variability with this, especially the fact that you can swallow a car and turn to a car if you want to. This just seems cool. I'm excited to at least give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
All right. While fans will still have to wait for an announcement regarding Mother 3,
Never going to happen.
never going to happen. Nintendo did reveal that Earthbound and Earthbound Beginnings will release on Switch later today, which I have to fully admit, as soon as the music came on, I went, ah!
What was that again?
Ah!
And I'm spent.
And then I was waiting for it to say Earthbound and then a 3 at the end. And when it didn't, I was only mildly disappointed.
I mean, this is pretty epic.
It is.
Like, since Nintendo started doing like shadow dropping directs, basically, people would always say, oh, when are they going to put Earthbound on the Switch Online service? When are they going to put Earthbound? And then they finally did it. Is they're like, here, shut up. Here's the game.
Now go away.
And, you know, I love the fact that they brought Earthbound Beginnings as well. Also known as Earthbound Zero or Mother 1 for anybody who is interested. But it was, of course, the Famicom version of the Mother series. It's a really fun game. It's super hard if anybody hasn't played it yet. And I highly recommend, if you are a fan of NES RPGs, that this is a good game.
All right, next up, Live Alive is a JRPG that has previously never been released outside of Japan. On July 22nd, that all changes as Live Alive will arrive on Switch in the HD 2D style that games like Octopath Traveler are known for. Live Alive's story follows 7 protagonists, and you can choose to follow their paths in any way you choose. And I am pumped for this. This is exciting.
Same here. I've heard a lot about Live Alive.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, you know, obviously can't play it unless you got an English patch, or you got to go out of your way to play it, is what I'm saying.
Right.
You got to want it.
Right. So the fact that it's coming and it sounds like they gave it the good treatment. So boom, I'm all in day one.
The copy that we had to read made me think of Real World. So this story follows 7 protagonists who live in a loft and have their lives taped. It's like, what? Is that Real World on the Nintendo Switch?
No.
They should have made a Real World game.
I know. If they're making a Jackass game, come on. You got to make a Real World or Road World.
You know, you're going to find out that somebody's going to be like, actually they did for the 32X.
And it was horrible.
Darn it. Right.
So let's quickly go over the rest of the announcements. The Nintendo Switch will soon be home to remakes of Front Mission and Front Mission 2. Front Mission First Remake will arrive first this summer, and Front Mission 2 Remake will come at some point in the future. While the return of Advance Wars was delayed out of 2021, fans won't have to wait too long, as Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp will be released on April 8th, 2022.
Squee!
Are you a big Advance Wars fan?
Oh, I love it. And the fact that there's online mode, I'm going to be playing with my brother like every night. So super excited.
Squee is warranted there. Valve's Portal 1 and 2 will both make their way to the Nintendo Switch in 2022 as part of the Portal Companion Collection. And for the first time, MLB The Show will arrive on Nintendo Switch. While this was previously announced, we got a glimpse of the game in action. Star Wars The Force Unleashed will be another new Star Wars title headed to Nintendo Switch courtesy of Aspyr. This 2008 action-adventure title will be available from April 20th, 2022, and is a port of the Wii version.
Disney's Speedstorm is a new free-to-play racer that features Disney and Pixar characters like Mickey Mouse, Captain Jack Sparrow, and Sully. It will support cross-platform play and split-screen, and new characters, circuits, and karts will be introduced as part of a seasonal format. The new challenger in the kart racer genre will be released this summer. Hello Games' No Man's Sky will be traveling through the stars to Nintendo Switch in summer of 2022. Klonoa Fantasy Revere series will be released on July 8th and packages together Klonoa, Door of the Phantomile, and Klonoa 2, Lunatea's Veil. I hope I pronounced that right.
Nope, sorry.
Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythm Festival will play its way onto the Switch with 78 boppin' beats. The long-awaited DLC for Cuphead, the delicious last course, will be released on June 30th.
I'm excited for that one.
It's been 84 years. All right. While it was previously announced, Nintendo reminded fans that Assassin's Creed, the Ezio Collection, will be released on Switch on February 17th, 2022. The cloud version of the Kingdom Hearts games from the original through Kingdom Hearts 3 will be available on Nintendo Switch from February 10th. You can purchase the entire collection or single game collections. Nobody asked you. SD Gundam Battle Alliance challenges players to stop strange incidents called breaks. To accomplish this mission, players will lead 3 mobile suits in dynamic action RPG battles with the ability to enhance each suit with parts to improve their power. Getsu Fumiden Undying Moon combines intense roguelike action with a stunning dark fantasy world brought to life through traditional Japanese art. It will be available on Switch later today, and I already bought it.
Nice.
And finally, in a montage of upcoming Switch games, we caught a glimpse of Lego Brawls Summer 2022, Demon Slayer, the Hinokami Chronicles in June 10th, and 2 Point Campus May 17th, and Zombie Army 4 April 26th. So this was a freaking huge direct.
Oh my God.
That was a mouthful.
not going there, not saying not acknowledging it.
It was a lot to take in. Jesus, there we go again.
All right, next up, we're going to hear from Professor Ryebread. Thank you for coming, students. Please take your seats. Welcome to Professor Ryebread's Gaming History 101. And in today's lesson, we're going to discuss a service that allowed people in Japan to download and play exclusive Super Famicom games right to their own home. Our topic today is, of course, the Satellaview by Saint Giga. And by the way, this was planned long before the Direct came out. I typed this up at I typed it up yesterday and then finished it up today. So it's ironic that one of the games...
Can confirm. He showed it to me yesterday, so he is telling the truth.
This was not like, great, they mentioned the Satellaview. I should do a whole thing on this. I've been thinking about this for weeks, so totally serendipitous. But the question is, why to cover it today? So for one, downloading games today, it's a common thing, right? It's something that we don't put a whole lot of thought into. But back in the 1990s, that was almost unheard of, is being able to download a game straight to your console. So the other part, too, is that St. Giga offered games that could not be played anywhere else. So they were exclusive to the console and included games that I thought Nintendo should have come out with. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But in the US, I know that there was like the Sega Channel and there was X-Band. Did either of you have any experience playing downloaded or online broadband games prior to like the 2000s when it was a commonplace on consoles?
No, not until the Xbox.
Right.
I didn't get my first internet until like 99, maybe, inside my house.
Gotcha.
I think that's about when we got ours as well.
I remember the Sega Channel, they did demos of it. In fact, I remember that was one of the reasons that I was aware of Zombies Ate My Neighbors, is because they did a demo play with it. But never owned the Sega Channel adapter, never knew anybody that did. If I remember right, you could rent it, though, from Blockbuster, if memory serves me right. But it wasn't something that was commonplace. It wasn't something that was terribly popular. And it just was, you were downloading games to play, whereas Satellaview is kind of a different look into that. So we'll talk about that here today. But if we start off from the beginning, St. Giga was a company based in Japan in 1990 is when they first started, and is credited as being the world's first digital satellite radio station. So if you think of like XM or Sirius, people who bug me every couple of weeks asking me to re-up my service because my trial period with my car has ended.
We're trying to reach you about your Sirius XM.
But these guys were the first ones to do it. And so just like random fact about that, I guess their most popular channel was like Nature Noises, I guess. They weren't having Howard Stern doing Shock Jock Radio quite on St. Giga. So. But flash forward to 4 years later, the company was struggling. At the time, there was a recession in Japan, so people weren't really looking to invest in the satellite tuners. They were kind of expensive overall. If memory serves me right, it was anywhere between $200 to $300 US dollars, whatever that is in yen. So it was an investment at the time, right? So Nintendo took a look at it in 1995 and said, okay, this is something that maybe we could leverage for our Super Famicom system. It's an aging system, so maybe this is some technology in which we can use. So they swooped in, bought a controlling stake in the company, and essentially rescued the failing service, which, you don't always hear great things about Nintendo doing stuff back in the day. So there we go. Put one in the win column for Nintendo. So soon what you saw is that Nintendo produced what's known as the Satellaview. It's a portmanteau between satellite and view. Wow. Very, very unique.
Way to go, Nintendo.
Right. But basically what it was a peripheral for the Super Famicom that allowed you to play games through a satellite broadcast. So the Satellaview player or allowed players to download games, magazines, other media. And it actually had pretty heavy third-party support. And we're talking in 1995-96,
right.
It had support from Squaresoft, which they dumped Nintendo because of the N64 at that point. So they were still willing to work with Nintendo on some of their old Squaresoft IPs. But other studios like Taito, Konami, Capcom, and Sega, they were all on board to produce games specifically for this service.
Did they allow you to download the magazines that my dad used to get?
Knowing it's Japan, maybe. But to use the Satellaview, basically players had to purchase this special broadcast satellite tuner that directly from St. Giga, or you could rent one for a fee every 6 months. But you paid a monthly subscription fee to both St. Giga and Nintendo. And the Satellaview system itself actually attached to the expansion port on the bottom of the Super Famicom. And it is bigger than the Super Famicom. So it was basically stacking almost 3 Super Famicoms on top of each other. It also included a special cartridge that contained a memory card for games. So that's what you would download it to. If our memory serves me right, it was anywhere between a megabyte to 512 kilobytes was what came with the cartridge, but you could upgrade to an 8 megabyte one. Ooh, so much space.
Sign of the times.
Right, for sure. Well, that also tells you how much or how big games were back then.
Right.
If you're looking at it, 8 megabytes, I take pictures on my phone that are bigger than 8 megabytes. So that's insane. But the real question is what makes this special? And there's a lot that makes this special coming from St. Giga. So for one, players had the opportunity to play these games a few different ways. So you could either download it straight from St. Giga and play it later on, or you could access the game at a specific time each day, which often included challenges for live players to compete in, right?
That's
so with these live challengers, players had about 50 minutes to complete a task, and high scores were recorded on the system. You could take a picture of it and even send that into Nintendo potentially to redeem prizes from Nintendo. And one example of that, it was like this probably 6-inch gold statue of Mario that you can get from them. So a lot of cool things that we in the West never saw or were even acutely aware of. So if you look at the games themselves that were available, many of the games that were made for the broadcast were actually remakes of Famicom games, including Dragon Quest, Excitebike, Wizardry, and the original Zelda, Legend of Zelda. So if you want to think about this, how many times have you played Super Mario All-Stars and thought to yourself, all right, wouldn't it be cool if they had a Super Nintendo version of Legend of Zelda? I personally have had that thought many, many times where I go, it's cool. I love Mario All-Stars because it's a 16-bit version of those games. Why didn't they give that treatment to Zelda, which was, as big of an IP for them as Mario was at the time? They both had their own cartoon shows and all that stuff. It was huge. So why didn't that get the same treatment? It actually did via the Satellaview. Amazing to me that they were willing to do that with things like Dragon Quest #1, Excitebike, Wizardry, and a few others. There's actually, memory serves me right, quite a few, like over 200 games that were available for players to download between I think late 95 all the way till the year 2000.
So what you're saying is it had a better library than Stadia.
Oh,
Ooh, yes.
shots fired.
World
if you think about it too,
Star,
this
World
is
Star.
kind of similar to Stadia. If you think about it too, that's a good point. The interesting part, though, is that some of these games are actually still available to play via either emulation or repro carts. The most famous two versions of that being a game called BS Legend of Zelda, which stands for Broadcast Satellite, not the other bad word. And BS Legend of Zelda Ancient Stone Tablets. So if you look at the BS Legend of Zelda, it contains two versions of the remake of Legend of Zelda with different maps. Actually, the dungeons spell out either Nintendo or Saint Giga, right? Which is kind of cool. Stone Tablets is a pseudo sequel to Link to the Past, and it has a 60-minute time limit. The reason it has a 60-minute time limit is it was one of those online games. And I know before I told you players had only 50 minutes to play.
Uh-huh.
The reason that it's only 50 minutes is because it took 7 minutes to download the game from the satellite. And they needed
telling me.
Right. They needed 3 minutes to kind of do some housekeeping. So players did not have 60 minutes, even though that's what the timer said. They actually had about 50.
Emotional damage.
There you go. But super cool. I think that if you are interested in ever getting to experience what happened on the Satellaview, I love the fact that it's out there. And in fact, to my knowledge, there's a community that has done a lot of work restoring these and making them available via ROMs. So sadly, the company folded in 2000 after Nintendo pulled support in 1999. But at the peak of their success, which was in 1997, and by the way, think about that, 1997, and there are people playing games on their Super Famicom that came out in 90. So
that's pretty cool.
Pretty darn cool. They were the retro gamers of the time, if you will. But at their peak in 1997, they had over 100,000 daily users of the service. So yeah, not exactly a small drop in the bucket. Of course, it is nothing compared to what you see on modern consoles today.
Right.
But for back then, that was pretty big adoption. All right. So to kind of wrap things up, of course, so thank you for attending today's lesson. Just as a reminder, if you have ideas for stories you'd like to hear from us, feel free to message us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com, and we might feature your suggestion. And by the way, we've got quite a few already. So thank you for everybody who has sent in suggestions. Really, really appreciate it. All right, so that brings us to the end of today's podcast. Thank you for listening to episode 8 of Gamers Week Podcast, and a big thank you to Retro Game Club Podcast for sponsoring this episode. Don't forget to check out their links in the show notes below. So if you want to connect, though, with Gamers Week, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC. Email us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our Twitch channel, which, of course, twitch.tv/GamersWeekPodcast. You can visit our merch store at gamers-week-podcast.creator-spring.com. Or if you want to do the easy way, follow the link in the show notes. And of course, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/gamersweek. Finally, since you made it all the way to the end of the episode, please leave us a rating and a review to let us know how we did. We really value your feedback. And while you're there, consider subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Say something, Blue.
Bye. I don't know.
Later, folks.